Hey, everybody. It's Friday night. It's NutBallCop again. Let's go through some news. Let's start with, and by the way, all three of these things are going to be about, because I'm going to continue my thought of the last couple of videos. The US government does a absolutely terrible job of protecting the average American, creating a peaceful and prosperity filled environment that allows us to live our lives without a lot of problems. The government is almost completely against that now. Not that they were actually before it before, but they're completely abandoning it with glee right now. Um, all the three things I'm going to talk about tonight is about how the government said one thing, repeated it, tripled down on it, fell to the mat, and told you this was had to be done, or it's the end of the universe as we know it. Okay, let's start out with the bullshit that was TikTok. Now, I wrote an essay a long time ago telling you the reality of the TikTok ban. Okay. Why did TikTok suddenly fall out of favor and become the pariah of the tech social media platforms? Because Mark Zuckerberg, according to the Washington Post, paid a shit ton of money to lobbyists to go after TikTok because it was impacting his business. And all of a sudden, everybody in Washington started claiming that TikTok was the only problematic site, that it was a harm to your children, and the Chinese were going to get you if they didn't seize TikTok because China was watching you. China was feeding you bad information. China, 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 China. And China will be in other stories too. They really sold China, TikTok, even the idiocy of the committee hearing in Congress, where they started yelling at the Singaporean CEO, demanding to reveal that he's really a Chinese guy in disguise. And he's like, no, I'm retired from the Singaporean military. Okay. Our offices are in Singapore and Los Angeles. What the hell are you talking about? Remember all that? Yeah. So I saw something earlier today that the terms of service of TikTok is changing. Also, it's not changing. Okay. We had to seize TikTok and force its divestment because the app was actually stealing data. Okay, back up a step. All social media platforms steal your data. Do you know who stole most of your data? It wasn't TikTok. I wrote a whole essay about that. Go down my essay list. It was the Cambridge Analytica project, thought up by Steve Bannon, funded by the same billionaires who are allied with Trump today, and they literally got unfettered access through Mark Zuckerberg to everything on Facebook. Even if it was marked private, even whatever, it didn't matter. They had access to Facebook in whole, everything they ever wanted to see, and they used that for several purposes. Brexit in England, Trump's election in the United States, the rise of AfD, Action for Deutschland, the new Nazis in Germany, and the far right parties of Gertz Wilder and the other idiot in Austria. Okay. To claim TikTok stole your data, that's reductive. Okay. Cambridge Analytica was a worldwide private spying operation for political purposes in at least 4 countries. And they did it on Facebook. Okay. The problem isn't who's taking your data. They're all taking your data. The problem is we have no data ownership. We have no rights like the Europeans have under the GPDR. We are just our information, our data, our presence is just been commodified and financialized, and the data underneath has been derivatized, securitized, and handed out mostly to political operatives so they can sway elections. Brexit passed because of Cambridge Analytica, not because it was a good idea. Okay. They framed Singapore control with a Chinese parent company, ByteDance. They claimed that that ownership was a national security threat against America and a criminal threat against the United States, especially children in the United States. Amy says, there's a great documentary on Cambridge Analytica and another one on Facebook engineers who were scraping our data before Facebook got big. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Suggest, please go find the essay. If I remember, I'll put it onto the comments of this video when it's posted. But yeah, I did the whole research, um, years of it. Um, and Cambridge Analytica is exactly the problem they wanted to ignore. So what did they do? Facebook hired lobbyists to change the subject from they did it too at a scale a million times larger. We have no proof that any data from TikTok was taken to affect political elections. We definitely have that evidence with Cambridge Analytica. That is information in hand. Okay. If the American youth were on TikTok, it was the end of America. That's what they sold you. Okay. Where did TikTok end up? In the hands of the Ellison family. Probably one of the biggest loudmouth supporters that's not Mark Andreessen in the tech industry. Now, they said if they were allowed to collect the data, it would be harmful to America, harmful to Americans, and it would literally destroy our children. Okay. Well, the terms of service were updated today. Did they deal with the fact that Donald Trump said many times that the data is in the wrong hands? There's too much data being collected. It's in the wrong hands. It's being exported. Okay. Because here's a little dirty fact that nobody wants to admit to right now. Okay. Ellison's now having control of TikTok. Does that stop a Chinese agent from buying data from a data broker off of any social media platform? No. The data is still available and you can get it with a credit card. Maybe I'll do that Sunday if I can turn this channel into an actual revenue so I can do research spending. I would love to do that. I would like to buy people's data and then show you what they did to you. As a data engineer, that would be really fun because I already know what they're doing to you. I'm not guessing what they're doing to you. I know what they're doing to you. TikTok must not end up in the wrong hands. So we have to give it to a campaign donor of Dear Leader Porn Star Humper and a loudmouth tech supporter of Dear Leader, and Dear Leader in turn supports that same interest from buying up all the media sites. Okay, they're not just getting TikTok; they're getting Paramount and Warner Brothers. It looks like. And remember, nobody in Washington thought TikTok was a problem until Facebook's, aka Zuckerberg's paid henchmen, Facebook's lobbyists, showed up in Washington to start the crying and whining. Okay. The Washington Post article and other articles make it perfectly clear. The reason the lobbyists were sent to Washington is because Mark Zuckerberg didn't want the competition. That's the whole heart of the TikTok problem. To tell me that they somehow did something different with your data than X is doing, or Facebook is doing, or True Social is doing, or Gab, or Rumble, or Instagram is absurd. Absurd at face value. So all I had to do is Larry and David Ellison, backed up by Mark Andreessen and a couple others. All I had to do was get on these talk show and podcasts, and all of a sudden, Trump wants to make sure that his ally, his political ally, gets control of one of the most popular social media platforms in the country. Okay. Now, what did they not do today with their terms of service updates? They didn't change a fucking thing they collected. A lot of the things they complain about are still in the terms of service right now after the update. Okay. Now, if you don't think it's going to get weird, guess what? The Singaporean company with an office in Los Angeles was not doing on TikTok, but they started to do today. Anybody want to take a guess what they're tracking on TikTok starting today? Do I need to hum the Jeopardy theme? They're going to track your sexual orientation and sexual preferences. They're going to geolocate you not by region or city, but by 3-digit GPS codes. They'll know what city block you're on at all times. Your political influence, your political stances and your political influences will be tracked. All your private chat messages will be tracked. All your AI prompts to any advanced feature will be permanently stored in TikTok now. Who do you think TikTok, as owned by the Ellisons, who do you think they're going to be selling your data to? I know who the first customer is. Christy, no. The second customer is Pete Hegseth. And this will tie into the stories later on I'll talk about tonight. Okay. They are ramping up against America and Americans. This is one aspect. This is one vector of it. So all the pundits, including content creators here, hey, Ryan McBath, you going to do another video? Hey, buddy. China is going to take TikTok and it's going to melt all the brains of all the American children. But now the American children will be tracked and surveilled and reported to the government for their sexual orientation and sexual preferences. Why we literally zero down on their location with GPS. So aren't you glad the Singaporean company isn't spying on you now? Because TikTok was spying on you, not Facebook, not True Social, not Gab, not Rumble, not Twitter X, the dumbest rebrand in the history of marketing. Dumbest shit I've ever seen. Okay. They want to know your Bluetooth beacons, what devices you're hooking up to. All they wanted to do was take TikTok out of private hands that were not connected to Dear Leader porn star Humper and his regime, and they wanted to exclusively have one step of separation, not 6 degrees of separation, one step of separation between the data and the government. And they just achieved that with Ellison's ownership of TikTok. The they told us, "Oh, we're gonna have to completely update the terms of service." Well, the stuff they complained that was the worst things about the term of service, they're all still there. Okay? And that's a massive, 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 massive contradiction. And tonight it's gonna all be about contradictions, hypocrisy. Telling us one thing and then doing the exact opposite days or weeks down the road. They need to check your financial awareness, your financial situation, your sexual orientation, and track how you're using your healthcare and health insurance. But the other guys were spying on you too much. There's too much of your data at risk with the other guys. Because you know where your TikTok data is going to go. It's going to be merged with the Doge data. And then that's going to be merged with the Facebook data, the Instagram data. They're building accounts on each and every American and doing something Colonel Wolfgang Schmidt of the East German Stasi only dreamed he could do. The Stasi had a resort of keeping parts of clothing or blankets in mason jars so they would have your scent in case they had to have the dogs go out and look for you. Okay, if you weren't at your apartment, they immediately put the dogs on you. Okay, they don't need the dogs anymore. They are going to pull out of your life everything they can possibly get about you on TikTok. This terms of service is pretty bad. Like if you're still on TikTok, so you've just surrendered your privacy. If we had if Congress actually cared about the average American, I talked about that last night. They don't. They don't literally give a shit. Okay, their main goals is to get reelected and to make money insider trading from what they just heard about in a committee meeting. Beyond that, 99% of Congress could give a shit. It's why we're in such a decay right now. It's how we ended up with Dear Leader Porn Star Humper. Now, I know because we don't have a European data law like they do. I know our data is basically, somebody else's as soon as we post it. But under the terms of service of TikTok now, they're explicitly saying everything you've ever posted, everything, even if you try to post it, it failed, but we still saw it, that's ours. Now here's the coup de grace. When TikTok was owned by and run by that Singaporean dude, or run by the Singaporean dude owned by the child company and the parent company, whatever. Did they specifically track your sexual orientation and your sexual preferences and your immigration status? This TikTok will. This is like the MAGA wish list for surveillance. They wrote it into a term of service because they know there's an entire upcoming generation or two on TikTok that are future voters that they can manipulate. What TikTok is quickly going to turn into is Cambridge Analytica on steroids. When you have the bankroll and the revenue, because the government's going to pay top dollar for this data. DHS will spend tens, hundreds of millions of dollars to get their hands on this data. Why? so they can turn it over to Ross Vaught, Stephen Miller, the Heritage Foundation, so they can target people. What, you're not in the cult? We're going to recruit you into the cult. You're a critic? We're going to harass you. You're a critic with attention? We're going to send ICE after you. Amy says, I'm in InfoSec. What do you do in InfoSec, Amy? I have a computer security background too. That's why I'm asking. I, my thing is data engineering for security and writing security algorithms. Um, nice to have a fellow geek. So you leverage the sale to a political ally of Trump. Then you change the terms of service so you can collect more data. After we already know about what you did in Cambridge Analytica, what you're doing with the voter rolls, what you're trying to do with the voter rolls. They just lost again. Big shout out to Mark Elise. He won another case this week. California, Georgia, and a couple of places do not have to give up their voter roll data because they're going to steal your TikTok data, match it up with your already stolen Facebook data, put that up with your credit data, put that up with the voting data, and then they're going to target you. If you're already drinking the great flavor aid, they're just going to feed you what you want to hear. If you're any sort of critic, look out. Okay. Because if they're willing to go after judges, governors, mayors of major cities, we completely made up charges, just complete BS charges. A mayor saying he doesn't like the conduct of federal agents in his town does not amount to anything other than free speech. And it's actually protected political speech given his role. So when you sit there and go all of a sudden oh, I'm going to arrest the Mayor Fry because he said something I don't like. Okay. That they took a company and told you it was a threat to you. They domesticated it, politically aligned it. They're going to maximize the output of the data for their own personal gain and political power. And they're going to use that data against you. The domestic ownership scheme of TikTok is more dangerous than the TikTok we already had. Because I really doubt, Singapore is trying to change our elections. Hell, I don't even think the Chinese are that worried about it. They're just watching us going, oh, look, they're self-emulating. Watch them go. But you leverage this wholesale, and now you ended up with a system that is literally going to come through absolutely everything, track every aspect of your life, and tell you the other person that was tracking you less was more of a threat. I'm sorry, can Singapore or China come send ICE to my house to shoot me? No. JD Vance said two things. He said, one, ICE has absolute immunity. Nobody has absolute immunity, by the way, in case you didn't know that about the law. Nobody has absolute immunity. Some people have qualified immunity, and Trump has presidential immunity. Congress has a few immunities too, like the debate clause. They can't be arrested for what they say if they're in a political discussion. That's why threatening to arrest Mark Kelly and all the others who said the military has to follow lawful orders, it's complete bullshit. They're completely protected by the debate clause. Not to mention the First Amendment at whole, This was a setup, and I hope people realize it. This was a setup. TikTok, the whole complaint of TikTok was an absolute setup from the word go. And of course, Democrats and Republicans, the left-right orthodoxy, had to fall ass over tea kettle to make it true. Is China or Singapore going to prevent me from getting a job because I'm a critic of the nationalist regime under the dear leader porn star Humper? No. But I guarantee you, because the way I speak so openly and I'm such an open critic of this bullshit, okay? I'm not getting a job in the tech industry again. Because most of the tech industry leaders have gone far right wing. And there literally will be McCarthy era style blacklists when they get done combing through this data. There will be not just undesirables or deplorables, there will be the unemployable. And if you read anything about the 20th century dictators, that whole plague of dictators in the 20th century, everything I'm telling you is history. Every dictatorship wants more information about the people they rule over so they can forcefully rule over them more. The Stasi in East Germany were so crazy, they didn't even trust private businesses to do anything without Stasi supervision. Like, if it was something major, the Stasi basically owned it, operated it, and directed it. Like their chip industry in the 80s, which was so stupid. They couldn't make their own chips. They sucked at it. So all they did was rip off Texas Instrument and Siemens chips and try to copy them. But Stasi was so paranoid, they'd scrape the number off the chips, so the engineers that had to reverse engineer, they didn't know what they were fucking looking at. It took forever to reverse engineer one simple chip from the 1980s. Now, the chips back then were a lot simpler than the shit we use today. Okay. We're talking the difference between hundreds of thousands or a million transistor and several billion transistors on a die. Okay. These Germans couldn't even figure out the old stuff. But basically, you weren't allowed to run your own business if the Stasi saw a concern in your business. They ran your business. And if they considered you important enough to the state, then you were under total surveillance. Not just you're under surveillance, you and everybody you know in your family and circle of friends are under surveillance. Now, a lot of the stuff that was present in the 2024 terms of agreement, like racial, ethnic origin, national origin, religious beliefs, mental, physical health, diagnosis, sexual life, sexual orientation, status as a transgender or non-binary, citizenship, immigration status, and financial information. Did they lessen any of those data collection points? No, they just added more. So how does the original story about TikTok, which again it was false at face value, that I will post the article, I will explain it to you in detail in writing. Front page Washington Post. This was a setup by Facebook. Dirty deeds done dirt cheap. That's how we got to here. Now we have a US controlled company that has unfettered access to tens of millions of teens and young adults, which now they can manipulate by mass data collection. Were they really looking out for the kids? No. They're trying to groom the next generation of far-right Goombas to be in their cult. And guess what? They did it. It's a win for them. Some people are deleting their accounts off of TikTok. I heard a couple 100,000 people all ditch their accounts today. Been reading some articles before dinner. That's a drop in the bucket. But when they want to go down and they want to permanently store everything you ever asked, harvest your personal chat messages, your private chat messages, and then start adding category after category of stuff they're going to additionally trace. The problem was never data collection. The problem for them is they're the ones that weren't collecting the data. That's all that happened. Bad data collection because we don't have privacy and data ownership like Europe does. So they took a bad ownership and they said, look, we can make it worse. And it's a total win for them. TikTok was bad. So let's have the Ellisons do it on steroids. You just got gamed, America. Let me go on to the Texas grid. I'm going to go back to China here in the third topic. So keep TikTok and China and everything else in mind because everything you were told about China, they were trolling you. I'll get to that in a minute. Everybody knows this winter storm's coming in right now. And if you include the side weather patterns, like the Thule fog is showing up in the Central Valley of California, it's some of the thickest fog we've seen in decades. Everything from New Mexico to Chicago to the Carolinas and everything in between is about to be hit with snow and ice. Now, what really pisses me off is the last time this happened. The last time this happened, the state, just like, let me paralyze this right up front. When Uvalde happened, the school shooting, and they stood in the hallway like goddamn cowards. Okay. They're just like the military. Well, if you're just like the military, then every single one of you should have been charged with cowardice in the face of the enemy because you were, in fact, fucking cowards. Okay. But the cowards, through let's keep hiring lawyers and consultants so they say the right thing I want to hear. Sound familiar? In the end, the Uvalde cops have done nothing wrong. They're heroes. The guy they put up on trial for failing to act, total acquittal. Juries won't hold these guys responsible. So Texas loves being full of shit. Not that every other state can be guilty of that at some level, but Texas is very good at it. Now, the last winter storm Texas had, they came out with a bogus number. They worked extraordinarily hard to minimize the death toll of running a casino system that pretended to be a utility and an energy grid. Okay. And there's multiple ways that Texas is just so full of shit when it comes to their grid. Okay. But I'm trying to find the deaths. Okay. The official number from the Texas State Health Services, the final official count said 246 deaths to the storm and associated conditions. Okay, so it sounded like they were including enhanced mortality. Okay. Amy says, mostly GRC, but always learning. I'm old, and so this isn't my first career. Neither am I. Tech is my second career. Yeah, I was in the military and paramilitary for almost 13 and a half years. I started tech real late. That's why, like my last company I worked at, like everybody I worked with was the age of my children. I was the old guy at the office. Okay, so they said 246. Um, and I'm like, that seems a bit low. But I didn't have any data to dispute it. I just said that just seems unnaturally a low number given the scale of the storm. My millennial management rocks. If you can manage millennials, you're treasure. You are gold in the workplace because they're like herding cats. Okay, so DSSH said 246 deaths. But when the newspapers and independent statistical analysis was performed, the number ranged from, they said 246, but the number ranged in the analyses from 246 to 978, including enhanced mortality. BuzzFeed statistical analysis using a good statistician, they put the excess deaths in Texas at 702 people. 702 people died, froze to death, many of them. There was other causes of death, like not being able to the hospital and all that kind of stuff that happens during disasters. But yeah, 700 people died because they wanted to run a casino that ingratiates their political campaign donors at the Texas State House. This storm that's coming in now, my heart goes out to Texas and the people of Texas tonight. You're about to get fucking waylaid. They're talking multi-inch ice storms in Houston on the Gulf of Mexico. Idiots. It's not the Gulf of America. No cartographer in the world calls it the Gulf of America. Now, how many hours are we away from sharpieing away the Texas storm and the Texas death toll? That's what I'm worrying about right now. Because Texas has proven, not just in the storm in Uvalde, they've proven multiple times, they will lie their ass off to protect themselves and their alleged reputations. Anything to keep the status power structure under, what's Abbott been in charge now? What, 20 years? This is like a dictatorship of Texas now. Okay. And since they're allied with dear leader in Washington, if this goes south and the grid fails even worse than it did last time, and as many or more people die, and that's my fear tonight. I think a lot of people are going to get hurt. Needlessly so. Now, if you're in a storm zone or just you live in California like I do in PG&E, sucks only just a little bit less than ERCOT in Texas. I just bought a Jackery battery from Jackery.com. I have years and years of experience running data centers and server rooms. I'm actually an expert. I'm certified in universal power supplies, line conditioners, inverters, certified by APC, American Power Conversion, Schneider Electric. I've installed literally over 1,000 electrical protection systems in my career. The Jackeries are cool. Backup batteries. They're big enough. The big one, I bought the 3,000 watt one with a peak of 7,200 watts. That can keep a refrigerator running for over a day. Plus, it has all the USB ports that you can recharge your phone, recharge your laptop. It's got AC ports, so you want to you don't have a USB jack and you want to do AC into your laptop, you can do that. So, totally endorsing that product. And if you need a backup, like you've got an oxygen machine, our thing is we don't want our meat to go bad again. We had a 2.5-day outage. We lost all the meat in our refrigerator, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars of meat downstairs. Okay, so that's why we have the battery now because we don't want to lose because the battery was expensive, but so is the freaking meat, especially ground beef right now. It's like the highest cost against cost of living in all time. It's so high. Um, so when this storm comes in and we run into a problem, just expect that Governor Abbott and AG Paxton and the rest of the Texas cabal will start lying their ass off immediately. Okay. I don't know about the billing situation, but the last storm, I remember reading a story in the Texas Tribune about Army Sergeant First Class, an E7 retired, who got a bill for those days his lights were off. He did not have any electricity. But because of this gambling, present the wholesale to the customer scheme they did in Texas, he got a bill while sitting in a blackout for $12,000. It emptied his entire savings account. Does the government look out for the average American? Hell, they don't even look out for veterans. Never mind the average American. They don't care. We're going to set up a power billing. If the power goes offline and your lights go out, we charge you 25 times more. Because once part of the grid started to fail, all the volatility and the pricing for the rest of the region started going crazy. And next, a kilowatt hour is some gigantic number. And they just passed that straight through the people that were dumb enough to sign up for that billing plan. So are we going to see a repeat of it this weekend, next week? Veterans are going to have their entire savings accounts emptied because the corrupt ERCOT, the corrupt state government, the corrupt railroad commission, the corrupt utility operator wants their piece of meat. Now take that fines and billing you when the lights are on, push that back against, hey, we never built a nuclear power plant since 9/11. We made no attempts to solve our energy problems other than scream about clean coal, which is literally an impossibility. What's left out with coal after you burn it is worse than what's left in a reactor. The nuclear waste is better to handle than the shit that comes out and we store in open slag ponds with coal. So clean coal and drill, baby, drill. We didn't do any reasonable energy electrical grid. T-Bone Pickens told us in the early 2000s he was pissed at Saudi Arabia for attacking us, rightfully so. And he said, you know what? We need to build windmills. Oil guy. We need to build windmills from North Texas all the way up to North Dakota. Then we need to create the Eisenhower Interstate Electrical Grid. Covers the whole country, links up with Canada and Mexico, creates a whole North American smart grid. What'd we do? We invaded Iraq and went, clean coal. Okay. So we never stabilized our energy production. We took the natural gas we were getting from fracking. We started selling that overseas, raising every time they ship more natural gas offshore, your home electricity prices go up. And they've been going up for a decade. Did we build new nuclear plants to get more kilowatts on the wire? No. Did we fix the wires? No. We invaded Iraq and told people to go shopping. Now here comes another storm. And they're convinced because it's going to snow. Trump actually said this because he is a fucking idiot. Well, it can't be global warming because it's cold and snowing. Okay, global warming, climate change are labels. And science, yeah, it has a bad history of stupid fucking labels. I love physics, but some of the labels are so stupid. Like quantum color dynamics, they mark the gluon energy as red, green, blue. At that scale of a gluon and a quark, red, green, and blue don't even exist. There's no visible light at that scale. It doesn't exist. It's a dumb fucking label. They should have called it Larry, Curly, and Moe. And it is going to get bad. I got a active bot on Sound 9000 here. She's running alerts every hour for me, popping them up to my phone and my web page. I told her to shut off sending me emails, but I don't think she got that part. Um, yeah, there are weather watches. There's already outages. Multiple outages in San Marcos area to electrical pole fires. That's not good. A couple of thousand people offline. Manor, uh, suburb of Austin, they have another minor problem with power lines, and the storm and the cold isn't really even here yet. The temperatures are going to drop tonight. This is where it all starts. Um, the good news is not yet. As of the last hour, there's no statewide energy emergency in Texas declared by ECOT. There are localized infrastructure issues and outages, but my concern is you start getting a bunch of little problems as the storm is ramping up, then the storm hits hard, you're going to be in trouble. You are going to be in very big trouble, Texas. I'm not wishing this. I screamed bloody murder the last time. Fix the goddamn energy grid. Fix the national grid. Start building nuclear power. Start putting solar and wind literally anywhere we can do it. Like a house being built after 2020 that doesn't have at least 4 kilowatt hours of solar panels on the roof is a major fucking national policy mistake. Every government building should have solar panels on it. Every shopping mall should have solar panels. I've operated my own solar array, a 10.2 kilowatt hour solar array for 10 years now. One of the best investments I've ever done. I talked about that in detail last time. But some of the early warnings coming out of the weather services, this is going to get rough. Like I said, multi inches of ice in Houston, temperature plummets in Austin, Houston, Dallas. Um, Man, when you start going up to North Texas, up toward Oklahoma, especially up in the hills, northern Texas, which by the way are beautiful. I stayed at a German hotel with my sister. We're driving across country. We ended up stopping in North Texas at this like little German looking town. It was awesome. I really like that area of the country. I also like Austin. I do like Austin. I've been there several times. I stayed down there for like 12 days one year. I was at Dell's headquarters. I had to learn how to run the new Clarion storage area network systems. So me and a pal from the lab, we went down there for almost 2 weeks. Great food, great downtown scene. Yeah, and Tex-Mex is awesome. I really like the food down there. Um, so I'm checking the latest updates here. Let me do a quick refresh. Let's see if we got. Okay, good news is right now the grid is marked normal, but they are warning that, or they're already seeing stresses. And that's because everybody's electric heater is going to turn on. If you've got a barn and you got animals, your barn heaters are going to be on. There's going to be a hell of a pull. It's like the heat waves out here when everybody turns their air conditioning on. Same problem. That's why we need nuclear. Like in England and France, when you just need more power, you just turn it up. In nuclear power, if you want real green energy that's not going to output CO2 and eventually kill off the whole planet, nuclear is your best option. Nuclear baseline, natural gas regional load balancer, and as much renewables as you can possibly get on top. But I'll follow up on this, but I'm really I'm not just concerned because I see this as another political screw up. I'm actually really concerned about the people down south because they didn't have to go through this the first time. I'm really worried if they go through it a second time, how much bullshit we'll hear from the Texas state government. Now, here's another problem here because Donald Trump has had a habit of telling red states to go fuck themselves when disasters happen. He told Huckabee, who used to work for him at the White House, she's now the governor of Arkansas. He was like, hell no, I'm not giving you any money. This was during the Doge period, where any spending that didn't go to the DoD or didn't put money in Elon Musk's pocket was bad spending. Remember that era? Lasted about 6 months. Yeah. Unfortunately, they had a bunch of tornadoes and hail, and yeah, they got hammered. No doubt. They probably needed some help. Did they get any? No. What happens after this storm? What happens when the worst damage happens in Austin, which tends to lean away from the Republicans and the far right? Is he going to say, "Well, I'll help out Houston, but I'm not going to help out Austin"? No, they're too woke. Woke, the word I'm so sick and fucking tired of hearing. They think it's a blanket excuse to everything. What? The kids learned history and now you're pissed because you can't lie to them? It's woke. It's woke. It's woke. Who gives a shit? Shut up. Okay. Now let's talk about China and TikTok and how the story from A to B really doesn't follow a linear path. Gets all confused and twisted into knots. Here we go again. Apparently, the last 30 years of our foreign policy has been a bullshit PR stunt to make sure, I don't know what. Defense contractors got paid, wealthy people that own the stocks in the Defense Department got paid, congressmen insider trading on the defense stocks and the security stocks. They're getting paid. Probably that. But I was reading Politico earlier today, and lo and behold, since mid 1990s, we have been 30 minutes away from a war with China. From Bubba Clinton through every single president, including Trump's first term. China, 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 China. China's got our kids' data in TikTok. China! China! It's an excuse to not fix things here. Let me just bring that out up front. Anytime you see them bitching repeatedly about something else or somewhere else, that's just an excuse not to fix things here. You're not going to fix healthcare. You're not going to fix the cost of living. You're not going to fix the electrical grid. Well, it turns out that the National Defense Strategy Report has been released. And despite for 3 decades of us being a half an hour away from complete Armageddon warfare with China, as of the publishing of this report this week, China is no longer a threat. Doesn't exist. Anybody want to try to make sense of that? 30 fucking years. Clinton. Everybody forward. China, 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 China. We need more defense budget. We need to spend $1 trillion a year because China. Oh, we're leaving Afghanistan and Iraq. We have to spend more money because of China. Whatever we were spending in Iraq and Afghanistan, we have to spend more to get ready for China. And again, content creators, pundits, podcasts, whatever. Hey, call it out again. Ryan with that. How many times have I watched him go, "Oh my God, we're the war with Taiwan and China starts tomorrow morning." Ah! How's that even possible? My camera. How's that even possible? That we went from we are absolutely going to war in the immediate future because the risk is 10 out of 10. This week, the risk doesn't exist. trying to find one quote here. Trump said in his first term that the greatest strategic threat to America was China. Okay. Okay. They went through 10 of 10 threat to America. We're at war sometime in the next few days or weeks. To forget about China, the threat never existed. Because Z told Trump Z was not going to invade Taiwan. This supports my theory that Putin, Trump, and Z have divided the world into threes. And I'll provide you more evidence that could be really true here in a second. But they've split up the world into thirds so they can conquer their region and exploit it for their own profit. We haven't seen this since Nazi Germany and the Imperial Japanese. So now we're the baddies. We're part of one of three constructs that are the evil force on the planet. Now, I know they'll try to hedge this in interviews later on. Oh, it was just a strategic determination, a well-informed opinion. We've changed our opinion. I'm sorry. How many hundreds of billions of dollars did you spend building aircraft and ships to fight China? Because China has one aircraft carrier. They may build another one in 10 years. We have a whole fleet of aircraft carriers. Our aircraft carrier fleet outnumbers everybody else in the world. We need more aircraft carriers. We need more advanced fifth generation fighters, and we need more ships. China, 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 China. Hey, we're going to be at war with China in 15 minutes. Get ready. Here we go. We're there. We've spent $1.5 trillion preparing for the war with China. They now suddenly say doesn't exist. Okay, Trump wants to give Putin free reign in Europe so he can exploit and destroy Europe. He wants to give Asia Pacific to Z, and he wants to destroy the Western Hemisphere. Why do I have this opinion? I had this opinion well before I read this article on Politico. But guess what? With the new defense strategy, where is the military spending targeted now? Gulf of Mexico, Caribbean, Greenland, Canada, and Main Street, USA. Yeehaw! We've abandoned Ukraine so we can invade Main Street. And he said, well, I just got a dirty deal with Don Putin. Let's repeat it with Z. I can abandon Taiwan at the same time. And he just did. $1.5 trillion of spending in that ballpark to prepare for the war that was absolutely coming without question. According to Bubba Clinton to first term Trump. Now it doesn't exist all of a sudden. Are you getting the con yet, America? What did we build up for? Oh, that's right. The portfolios of wealthy people and executives in the defense industry. That's what we built up for, not a war with China, because both cannot be true. You can't sit there and tell me we had to spend all that money preparing for a war with China and then tell us the threat from China doesn't exist. Now, here's the problem. Trump's moral lighthouse is Orban and Putin. Two dictators, two commie-ass gangster. They're not pure communists, they're more gangster, but definitely still leaning on that communist bullshit. Okay, so Orban and Putin is his whole center of his philosophy for politics and governance. And he doesn't think Ukraine is worth fighting for. Europe is worth defending. Now South Korea and Taiwan are not worth defending. And he's going to turn all the guns into this hemisphere. Okay. Then why did you just ask for $600 billion more in the defense budget? There's no fucking way you didn't know this defense strategy paper was coming out. If Russia and China, our two biggest adversaries, are no longer a threat because Trump has got a personal relationship, a personal quid pro quo running with those guys. We don't need to defend Europe. We don't need to defend the South Korea, Australia, New Zealand, and the technocracies of the Pacific because we need $600 billion more. We're already spending over $900 billion. He wants $600 billion more, another $1.5 trillion. We spend $1.5 trillion to prepare for China war. That's not going to happen. So we're going to spend $1.5 trillion next year to prepare for a war in Portland, Minneapolis, Havana, possibly Toronto and Ottawa, Greenland. And once he starts, he won't stop. Then it's Mexico, then it's Colombia. And Colombia becomes Vietnam times Afghanistan times 1,000 bad for us. Okay. We go down to Colombia, we're going to get hurt. They're going to use our own tactics and training against us because guess who built their army? We did. They're well funded, they're well trained, they're well armed. Okay. And you want another jungle insurgency like Vietnam? We cannot learn the lessons of history. But I think now my attitude is we purposely ignore the lessons of history because there's money to be made, mofos. I'm wealthy and I'm mad my portfolio is embedded in there. So spend, 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 spend. What about spending on education? No, we can't do that. What about spending on healthcare? No, 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 we can't do that. We can't even give $15 to somebody who needs food per day. No, no, we can't do that. That's welfare. That's a moral failing. The Ohio State House just are trying to pass a bill that literally calls any sort of social assistance for poor people a moral failing. But anything absorbed by a wealthy family as really good. Because here's the wealthy white people welfare nobody wants to talk about, the home mortgage deduction. That's affluent white people welfare. And it's self-defeating. We've talked about this before. Robert Schilling's report on housing. Home mortgage deduction has done nothing but make housing prices go up. It's an artificial increase in prices to housing. So you can get your white boy welfare. Your self-defeating white boy welfare. But oh my God, if they need $15, somebody buys a McMansion for $4 million in Los Gatos or Monte de Serena, $5-6 million there. They'll mortgage the whole fucking thing just to write off the interest. Trust me, they're writing off a lot more than $15 a day. Now, Orban is the template for Trump. You know, Everything is militarized rhetoric. He learned that from Obama. Okay. Rewrite legal definitions and gaslight definitions to your face. That's Obama. Blending the police and the military into one thing. He learned that from Obama, but that's just dictatorship 101. Okay. Hussein did it. Ceausescu did it. Hoxha did it. Idi Amin did it. Gaddafi did it. Slobodan Milosevic did it. Nothing new. Orban frames every non-government organization, journalist, migrant, or protesters, quote, security risks. Where do you think Trump learned that? Orban's favorite phrase, homeland defense. The enemy within. Orwellian, right? I mean, if you don't understand this at this point, we have rough times ahead. Because I don't know how you cannot see some of the things I'm talking about. Because they're right there in front of you. Like, China is the greatest threat to America has ever seen. Worse than the Nazis, the Japanese, Al Qaeda. China, 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 China. I can name 10 counts on Substack and Blue Sky alone that's been saying this shit the entire time I've been on these platforms. This week, that threat no longer exists. According to Reuters, during the first Trump administration, the Trump administration prioritized China in its 2018 defense strategy report as the biggest threat to U.S. security. 2018. 2026, it's not a 10 out of 10 anymore. It's a 0 out of 10. But even though they're not going to support Ukraine, not going to support Taiwan, not support South Korea, because he's a xenophobic nationalist authoritarian who wants to take hostages, that's the dictator playbook. Okay. You understand, like the Nazis and the Imperial Japanese, they're kind of the exception to the rule. Okay. All dictators like to make territorial claims. That's the thing with Idi Amin in Uganda. He kept saying parts of Tasmania were his. And that just wasn't true at all. And then finally, Tanzania and a bunch of rebels from Uganda got sick and tired of Amin. They invaded Uganda, and Amin fled to Saudi Arabia. So we had placed China at the very top of the list in Trump's first term. We started building out. Biden continued that build out to defend America from the Chinese threat. So how do you explain the 180? Did you see JD Vance, his stupid comment? I posted the notes earlier. You can't turn around the Titanic overnight. I go, boy, that's a bad analogy, like 5 ways over. But let me just tell you one thing. You can turn a ship as big as the Titanic around really quick, a lot quicker than people think. I looked it up, did a little research earlier. Even without the modern propulsion systems, like to turn a ship 180 today, that's 5 minutes. I mean, I was on, what was it, the Princess of the Sea? When we turned around in the fjord in Alaska, we turned that whole boat around lickety split because they had to literally stand it in place with the satellites with the GPS and then turn it in place because the fjord is so small we couldn't do a radius turn. But even if the Titanic, with no modern propulsion systems, just the dual turns on the back end and a good rudder, if the quartermaster had good rudder control and the captain or the first officer yelled hard rudder, the turn radius would be huge. It'd be about 5-6 miles of a turn radius, but you could turn around even the Titanic in about 30 to 45 minutes. So you could actually turn it around several times overnight. So JD Vance's analogy was just, he was grasping at straws, obviously. Whoever's writing for him, he's not listening to them. He's just making shit up, and he sounds stupider than normal. More full of shit than normal, too, you know. Yeah, the passengers would throw up, but you could actually turn the Titanic around several times overnight. But we have a 180 here in national defense policy that literally makes no sense if you pay any attention to the news whatsoever. If you've read any of the reports over the last 10 years, I've been reading this shit since 9/11. Okay. I've been watching them say the world is literally less safe every quarter for 25 years. Now, the only threat are our neighbors who are our allies. But we're not going to deploy a forward force in Europe or Asia, but we still need $600 billion more. You're not going to have health care because they need $600 billion more to invade Havana, Boston, and Minneapolis. How did we get from, oh my God, we're 3 steps from World War III is, oh man, those trannies on Main Street in Minneapolis, they're the real problem. Let's call out some armored tanks. Let's talk some mechanized infantry and some armored columns. Yeah, we'll take care of that woke. What the fuck are we doing? What in the ever-loving fuck we're doing? This is a gazillion times worse than the police problem we have right now. You keep telling us we need more cops in the street, plus we need ICE, DHS, Border Patrol, yada, yada, yada. We need DEA supervisors walking through the park. We need National Guards guarding buildings. And the crime rate compared to the 90s and compared to the 70s is super low in comparison. Crime is not at an all-time high. It's not even close. Crime is actually declining. Denver is just another city out of, this has got to be the 20th city. They're heading toward lows they haven't seen in 3 to 4 decades. Meanwhile, you're being told by a manic degenerate, convicted felon, adjudicated rapist, and the guy who is the Epstein files, king of the pedos, that the problem no longer is the world and world security issues. The problem is everyday Americans. Why? We won't bend a knee in fealty to the wannabe king. And I don't know what this bastard expects, because if he thinks I'm bending a knee, right here, pal. It's America. We don't have fucking kings. We have public servants, civil servants that do a job for us. And when they fuck it up, we fire them. They fuck it up seriously, we throw their ass in jail. Hey, South Korea, the prosecutors in South Korea want to put Yoon into the death chamber. They want the death penalty for his coup attempt. Trump made $1.5–2 billion this year after his coup attempt. And he pardoned his entire criminal conspiracy all at once. And he's going to do it again. ICE is going. I'm pretty convinced that ICE is going to do something stupid. They're going to let loose with an AR or an AM-10 or something, and they're going to shoot into a crowd. And the second they do that, Trump's going to run to the lectern and give a blanket pardon to every ICE agent on the street and tell them to do it again. And I warned you about this during the bank protests. I warned you about this during the Black Lives Matter stuff. It's amazing how the tank gets sent out when college kids are drumming in a drum circle. They need the tank for that. But that's nothing compared to what ICE is doing today. They've eliminated the First Amendment, or trying to eliminate the First Amendment, the Second Amendment. Let me go step by step here. The First Amendment, you don't have the right to protest. They're making that very clear. Bovino, Holland, Trump, Vance, Miller. No, all telling you, you don't have a right to protest. We have the right to beat, torture, and shoot you if you get in our way. Second Amendment, first thing out of the gate this term, trans people don't get to have guns. Not even the NRA would buy off on that. Not even their corrupt asses would go that far. Because once they would have agreed to trans don't get guns, then they just picked off groups one after another until they had a total gun ban. Okay. Third Amendment, we don't have to quarter soldiers. Well, they just gave their permission to come into our house. Fourth Amendment, you need a search warrant to come into my house. They just released a memo saying they don't need search warrants anymore. Who decided that? ICE decided that for themselves. When I worked on a DEA task force, and if we decided to write our own search warrant, we would have gone to prison. Every single fucking member of our team would have went to prison. Whoever actually signed the affidavit and self-published a warrant to themselves, they'd have got the longest sentence. And I know us working for Army CID, we wouldn't have gone to the stockade. We'd have gone to Leavenworth. Like getting a warrant was such a checklist process. Them just deciding in a memo, a 2-page memo, well, the Fourth Amendment doesn't exist anymore. Your Fifth Amendment right to refuse to answer questions. You don't have the right to not answer a question with ICE, or they'll start beating you. They stopped a black couple today demanding to know what country they're from. And they're like, what? I'm born and raised in Minneapolis, dude. What the fuck are you talking about? No, you're from the Dominican Republic, motherfucker. These videos are insane. Okay? So you don't have you no longer have the right not to self-incriminate or not talk to the police or not testify against yourself. Because if you don't, they will beat you they'll beat the life out of you. Speedy trial under the Sixth, that's gone. You're not even gonna get a trial. The 10th Amendment, state rights, they don't exist anymore. They may exist for Texas, Oklahoma, Nebraska, and Florida, but they don't exist for Minnesota, California, Massachusetts, and Oregon. I know that. Texas can do anything they fucking want. All they gotta do is say 10 amendments 3 times and click their motherfucking heels. 10th Amendment, 10th Amendment, 10th Amendment. Take me to Kansas. Click. They threw that fucking out. The funniest video I've seen thus far of the ICE idiots, who, by the way, don't fucking call them cops. These are Goombas. These are the brown shirts in the 30s in Germany. This is Hussein's secret police in Iraq. These guys aren't cops. Oh, you know who really true? Another group of people who really turned out to be cowards, in addition to the Uvalde police. All your constitutional sheriffs. Remember those assholes who thought they had magical powers because Nicolas Cage and the National Treasure found an extra copy of the Constitution with special powers granted to sheriff, written in lemon juice on the back of a document that only they and Nicolas Cage know about. They're the constitutional center of America. Then you let the federal government invade your county and start shooting people, kidnapping people, torturing them. They're grabbing children now and incarcerating them. How the fuck does a 5-year-old commit a crime? How does a 2-year-old commit a crime? They're in custody today. if they're willing to abandon, because they're not just abandoning like with China, they're abandoning at least 30 years, 38 years of policy. Okay. The post-World War II order, that's 75 years of policy. We didn't sign the Treaty of San Francisco to end World War II until 1951. So this is 75 years of policy. He's just thrown in the trash heap. But he's not going to stop there. And this is what I warned you in the first term. They don't want 1965. They want 1865. They're the plantation owners of the 21st century, and they're going to show you that's true. Here we are, folks. To say that things like Cuba pose a military threat to the United States is ridiculous. Trying to think that you can defeat a market with the military, even though you tried it with heroin in Afghanistan and completely failed. Even when you had an entire division of Marines at your disposal, they couldn't stop the poppies in Afghanistan. But you think you're stopping cocaine and fentanyl by blowing shit up in the Caribbean, then attacking Colombia, Mexico, Cuba, and everywhere else, including major cities in the United States. And you literally have the fucking clueless intent to think that you can actually defeat a market with military force. Okay, Saudi Arabia chops people's heads off on reality TV for all sorts of crime. If being draconian and just murdering people because, you're a bunch of authoritarian assholes, and that's supposed to eliminate crime, why does Saudi Arabia continue to have to kill people every year? They literally chop their fucking heads off on TV. If that is the way to solve crime, why isn't crime solved? And this is what I've been talking about for ages here. And it's not just Trump that doesn't understand how law enforcement works. Nobody in his cabinet does. None of his none of his appointees that are supposed to be doing law enforcement know what the fuck they're doing. I just read an article earlier tonight. It says Kash Patel refuses to read any documents. Oh, great. Another person who can't read, like Trump. We have to show him pictures, give him some crayons. And the flip that I'm really concerned about with China, that 180-degree turn that's out of the blue. This is exactly what Orbán and Putin did in the early 2000s in their country, to the T. Oh, we have all these other concerns. Oh, we have this problem here. We have this problem there. We have to keep our influence up in Africa. We got to do this. We got to do that. Nope. All the problems are internal. I keep telling you, Dear Leader Pornstar Humper has never had an original thought in his fucking head his entire life. He just mimics other people. He's a low IQ con artist who just looks what people are going to think it's cool today. His little stupid dance, sucking Orbán's butt. Then he starts copying these guys. And the China policy we just saw thrown out the window is copying Orbán again. So China was a threat, so we have to spend trillions of dollars protecting America from China. We have to seize companies away from China because China is such a threat. And then all of a sudden, in January 2026, the threat doesn't exist. It never existed. We have to invade Minneapolis instead. I've told you, like, earlier in my life, my formative years in the army and police work, military, paramilitary. Um, I politically align with an old school. Even though I'm a little bit too young to be an Ike Republican, I pretty much align to that philosophy. Now I'm more of a Gruy libertarian, um, center left libertarian, basically. Um, I just can't believe where we've ended up now when you look at post World War II, Truman and Eisenhower, going forward to LBJ. You know, and I understand the big rocks that got us here. 9/11's a big part of it. You want to start changing things in the society? Use disaster response as the change. You can get all the authority and all you want as long as you can turn disaster into a national security issue, then turn up the volume even louder than it needs to be. Then you had banking deregulation, the bank crisis. Who did they take the money out of? Whose asses did they take a big carving out to bail out the banks? You and me. The bankers got bonus checks for committing crime and submarining the whole global economy. You got a lower quality of life. And now they're taking away your health care. They want to take away Social Security. They want to take away social Medicare. They want to take away your schools. They want to shut down public schools who won't teach Nazism and far right theocratic white nationalism, white Christian nationalism to little kids. We're going to shut down your school unless you make the public school a Nazi indoctrination camp. Man, have we fallen. And they get us every time. And I think a lot of it is because the left right orthodoxy. The Democrats keep surrendering. They keep telling us one thing, and then they surrender to the far right. It used to be surrendering or at least pretending to negotiate with the capital C right, capital conservative right. Now it's just capitulation. 7 Democrats voted to continue to fund ICE. There's no call for the impeachment of Todd Blanche, even though he shut down the FBI investigation into the murder of Renee Good in Minneapolis. Federal appellate courts are working against the federal district courts. Federal district court told Bovino to knock his shit off. They went straight to the appellate courts. Appellate court basically gave them free reign to do anything they want on the street. So I think at this point, it's just a matter of time before one of these goons, one of these fucking assholes, start popping off rounds out of a carbine, and then it all goes to shit. So, being an old Ike Republican, and now a groovy libertarian who knows I live in the nuclear age. I know crime is a real thing and it needs to be managed day by day, year by year. Crime is not a stoppable thing. It's just a factor that you've got to manage in society. Okay. But they don't seem to want to manage crime. They don't seem to want to defend the country anymore. They seem to want to turn the country itself and Americans into their internal enemy, like so many dictators of the past have done. So I can't get the thought out of my head is like one of the things I'm going to have to start asking candidates is how much you're willing to cut the military and law enforcement budgets in America. I'm thinking we start the negotiation at 50% off because you don't need a $1.5 trillion budget if you're not going to protect Europe or Ukraine and you're not going to protect Asia Pacific, Taiwan, and South Korea? The only point is sending $600 billion more is to attack America and Americans. Because we are now the stated enemy of the federal government and the nationalist regime. So fuck it. Hey, when they said defund the police after Black Lives Matter, man, I went off. I literally told, okay, this was a real case of mine when I was in Germany. Okay, we just got a call from Wiesbaden field office. You need to go over to the river. And I'm like, oh, they're not pawning off another case on us. And he goes, no, it's on our side of the river. I go, I wouldn't trust those bastards. They dragged the body on the other side of the river. So I get there. Yeah, it's on our side of the river. I'm like, oh, shit. It's a teenage girl and it's an American. Okay. You defund the police. You get rid of the police like some of the far, far leftists said in like Portland. Okay. Okay. Who does the crime scene at the river? The Murder She Wrote Club? Can we get real for a fucking second? Are we not going to investigate murders like we've stopped investigating rapes? Told you that story before. Go back and listen and write those essays. I talked all about that. I'm not going to repeat it. When you stop processing the rape evidence kits, you've stopped investigating rapes. Okay, are we going to stop investigating murders now too? How about kidnappings, robberies? Is this going to be like the ghettos in Brazil where this crime is just an everyday thing and it's a way of life? There is no law and order. There's no rule of law. There's just street crime and street violence everywhere. So I really went off on that when they said defund the police. But now, under this regime, I'm fearful to give them any money. I really think that we need to send a warning shot over defense contractors, military leadership, law enforcement leadership, the rank and file dickheads of this generation, riding around their little Tonka toy trucks, thinking they're in Fallujah when they're in Oakland. If you can only find enemies in Americans who aren't actually committing violent crimes and you consider them your military grade enemy, you have too much time, resources, and budget on your fucking hands. I think I'm going to start with city council because these guys were OG dickheads with a tank. I told you about that a couple of videos ago. Oh, we're outgunned. Nobody's outgunned with an M14 KS in their hands. You fucking coward. Okay. I only shot at the KS, the 14K. I didn't shoot the sniper version in the military. But yeah, it's a Battlefield 308. What else do you fucking need? Jesus. Now I shot a lot the G3s, the German equivalents of the American M14K. I love the G3s. G3s with a 4-to-9 power scope, you can reach out and touch somebody. Even without the scope, I got into a shooting contest with a couple of Germans. The German lieutenant won that day. He got out to about 430 yards. Most people dropped out at 300. Nobody. There's like only 6 of us between the Americans and the Germans. 2 companies of soldiers that could go out beyond 300. I got out to about 410. And the lieutenant got me by a good 15 meters. So yeah, I know how to shoot a big battlefield weapon. Uh, but they said they were outgunned. I go, okay. So I may go down to the city council and go, why don't we start right here? Since our city's been broke the entire 25 years I've lived here, why don't we cut the police budget by 50%? And then you'll have to concentrate on real law enforcement and real management of resources instead of riding around on top of your fucking tank. Because I told you, the key to law enforcement is the clearance rate. Any other matrix, any other, what we call it in the big time, the KPI, it's the clearance rate. Clearance rate staying out of torts in court, and internal discipline. That's your big three message of a good working police department. It ain't the fucking tank, especially when we can armor up the SUVs. I mean, they're bulletproof too. We drove them in the 80s in West Germany. That's how we moved VIPs in armored civilian looking sedans. You could shoot our cars with 200 rounds out of an AK-47. We keep driving. You don't need the fucking tank. You don't need the Bearcat armored car. And I know I'm facetiously calling it a tank. I know what a real tank looks like. I've been to Grafenwehr and Baumholder in West Germany and have seen main battle tanks. But these dickheads literally think they're riding around on a real tank. That's the goddamn problem. It's an attitude problem. It isn't something they need for officer safety or emergency response in a weird scenario. It is a everyday tool of political suppression. So, why not? Why not make this election and the midterms and the 2020 election about reducing law enforcement and military budget dramatically? I mean, scare them a little. That's what I'm saying. How many federal law enforcement agents will be happy working at Starbucks on a part-time job with no health care? How about working at an Amazon warehouse? Maybe being a DoorDash driver. Okay. Because the money we're giving you now, in my professional opinion, in my well-read opinion, has very little to do with law enforcement. This China security report, this defense strategy report that includes China, tells me you're not interested in doing the global order anymore. You're just wanting to invade the United States. And a couple of neighbors you think you can exploit their resources. Now the Army special operators are nothing more than fucking gang members on a robbery mission, like it's a Netflix fucking crime drama or an action movie or some shit like that. Because now the oil's been sold and the money's in Qatar, not the U.S. Treasury. Now the money's in control of Trump's top donor. I'm sorry, do we have two separate treasuries? No, we do not. Trump has it now. So we have all this funding for the military so we can do robberies and export cash to foreign countries so politicians and their campaign donors can ingratiate themselves? That's what the $1.5 trillion per year military budget's going to be for? Fuck that. I say we make it hurt for a little bit. Then they can come up with a better plan on what they're going to do with these resources after we give them this money. Because the two biggest expenditures we make at the federal and the state and local levels is military and law enforcement. Biggest bill in your muni is law enforcement. They really want to cut costs? Well, I don't think we should cut pediatric cancer research. I think we should cut the military budget instead. I think we should fund education. You know why? I already told you this. We don't need stupid kids. We have enough of that already. Okay, because you either give them a good education and you give them a shot at this economy, or you pay 10 times as much as county jail or 25 times as much in state prison. Your fucking choice. You only get one choice, though. I'll take education over invading Minneapolis, Boston, Memphis, and Portland. And I guess all over Northern California in the last couple of days. My son keeps telling my friends keep texting me from up north. I go, what's going on? He goes, there's ICE vehicles everywhere, HSI vehicles everywhere. And I'm like, okay, HSI, are they marked vehicles? Because we have a lot of those. We've had them for years. There's a federal courthouse and a bunch of stuff around. They guard it and do police functions inside, bailiff functions inside, whatever. And I go, are these the ICE goons or are these the federal, basically physical security cops? And it seemed to be a combination of both. Okay. So I'm like, okay, since you guys, like I said, you have way too much, you have too many personnel. You have too big of a payroll. You are not cost efficient. Oh, cost efficiency. Do you understand what's going to happen when these lawsuits drop against ICE? Okay, they're going to try under Trump, of course, or maybe JD Vance when Trump finally kicks the bucket. Because you see his hand, it's the size of a cantaloupe, and it looks like dead, decaying skin on the back of his hand. I was gagged when I saw that picture close up. I was like, okay, I thought the ankles were bad, and the other hand, bruising was bad. No, this is a whole other level. Plus, you notice in a lot of the news, he has stroke race. I have stroke race, and I talk like this a lot. I can't pronounce multiple syllable words. So whether it's him or JD Vance or whoever in the secession chain comes down, I because part of me knows, because I predicted this. When I read Project 2025 and I wrote an essay about it in August of, what was it, 23, I sat there and told you, I go, this is the warning sign of warning signs of warning signs. There's nothing more clear about how they want to fuck with the average American and how they're pissed at everything that doesn't put money in their pocket. And the dichotomy of things. Why does the military need another $600 billion when you're not going to be doing the world global order? That doesn't even make any sense. Who is that money going to be used to attack? Enemies you made up? Apparently so. Because if you think Greenland and Denmark are an enemy, you're a dangerous fucking idiot. And not to mention the disrespectful shit that happened this week. Claiming that NATO would not respond if America was in trouble. Fuck you, and fuck you again, you idiot. Okay. Britain lost like 600 guys in Afghanistan fighting alongside us. Okay. Spanish pilots flew every single frickin' day post 9/11 as our wingmen. Germany and America has cross-decorated soldiers in both armies for joint combat operations in both Iraq and Afghanistan. Germany's lost like 63 soldiers doing U.S. operations. NATO would never come to our assistance. They already did, you lying fuck. And here's the lesson America needs to take on going forward for the rest of history. Do not elect an old dementia patient with a felony record who has been an adjudicated rapist and was an insurrectionist. America, you have proverbially painted yourself into a fucking corner. Now that you're stuck in the corner, now he wants to send the army after you. Let's cut their budget. Let's make it the voting thing. You have to cut the military law enforcement budget because they cannot decide who their real enemies or the real criminals are. Everybody's a military threat. Everybody's a criminal. That's just Orwellian bullshit. That's Stalinism in East Germany all over again. History isn't rhyming. It's actually fucking repeating this time. Be independent. The left-right orthodoxy, the Democrats and Republicans, they're destroying America. They're destroying American lives. 7 Democrats just voted to refund ICE. Senate Democrats are going to vote to refund ICE, even after they've been shown to be doing both illegal and unconstitutional actions against U.S. citizens and legal residents. Everything they said about their operations was not true. Bovino standing in front of the cameras this week. Oh my God, we're going after child rapists. You're going after who? There's an entire set of files called the Epstein files. We know of at least 14 names from the local Florida police investigation. We know a whole list of child rapists who you're hiding actively for political purposes. But now every immigrant Bovino's going after is a child rapist? Are you getting the con yet, America? America, can you wake the fuck up? Can you get out of your coma before they destroy this country? Because that's their intent now. We're abandoning the world. We're collapsing the entire world's largest military. The military that outnumbers all our allies combined. And we're going to focus it on ourselves, North America, and the Caribbean. Not because there's a military grade problem in this hemisphere, because there's resources to exploit. There are people to suppress. They know they're arresting U.S. citizens. There are U.S. citizen sections in these detainment camps. They know what they are doing, and they're doing it on purpose. We're just we're not far. We're very, very close. Sorry, misspoke. We are very, very close to straight up concentration camps due to ideological differences with the regime and their attack on the other. The first ones to go will be political dissidents, just like Nazi Germany, and it will be trans people, not gay per se, but definitely trans, especially men who identify as women. That really offends them. Me, I don't know why you're getting so worked up. Gender and sex are weird things, man. It's complex. It's complicated. I don't get hung up on these things. Okay. I've said before, like I took my wife to a party with all my music and artist friends over in the city. And yeah, one of my party friends that's in this big circle of friends I see once, a year or so at these big parties. Yeah, he's a 50-year-old carpenter, 55 now, I think, who loves pink taffeta. He's a really nice guy. He just likes wearing women's clothing for some reason. I'm like, oh, okay, do what you want. I don't care. I mean, you're not hurting me. Why do I care? I definitely don't want to take away the guy's civil rights. He's pretty funny. It's fun to talk to at parties. You know, I have a lot of friends and associates and friends of friends who all walk on the wild side of life. I'm an old married guy. Been married for 38 years. Pretty normal guy. I have a lot of freaky friends. To each his own. I mean, that's the way we grew up in New England. It was live and let live. That's the way it was in the 70s in New England. Now it's just hate your neighbor. But you're all good Christians who are supposed to love thy neighbor, but you literally loathe every neighbor you got unless they look, act, and say everything just like you do. Hell, I have close friends who I don't think we politically agree on a whole hell of a lot. We're still friends. And to sit there and just like call out a group like transgender people or, cross dressers or whoever they're mad at today and just trying to make them the demons of society. This is just old hat, bad game. Again, none of this shit is new. They are not thinking up anything original. They're just going for the lowest common denominator to get the people who are the least informed, have the least knowledge, the least amount of awareness, to get them riled up at something else other than the people who have been ripping them off since Ronald Reagan. So I'm going to push even harder on the independent thing. I re-registered 25 years ago as an independent. I am never registering for a political party ever in my life. Even though I lean libertarian, also I lean a little bit center left liberal on more than a few issues. Um, really, really high on the libertarian charts. I don't see a purpose to continuing with the format of Democrats and Republicans as the overwhelming political space in our society. We have to get more independence in. We have to. It's a matter of survival at this point. What was that show with Keith Sutherland? Designated Survivor? Was that the name of it? One of the things I really liked, I only watched like 5, 6 episodes. I kind of got distracted on something else. Um, I liked the fact when Congress got reelected after the attack that independents took over Congress. To me, that's a dream come true. I would just be happy with enough independents in the House and just a handful of independents, not Bernie Sanders. Fuck him. Okay. He agrees with Trump's commie grab of Intel, AMD, and Nvidia. Bullshit. Okay. And all his grousing about how he's going to fix the system and nothing, absolutely nothing got fixed. So forget Bernie because I know he's an actual independent, but he caucuses 100 and votes 100% with the Democrats. That's been his pattern. Um, we need a block of true nonpartisan independents who will not caucus with the Democrats, who will not caucus with the Republicans. They will be independents in the House. They will be independents in the Senate. They will vote the issue, not the party. That's why I hate political parties. You gotta assign into this group think. That doesn't make any sense to me. I could feel one way about one issue and align with one group, and then I could see a different issue, do an evaluation, read the data, catch up on the on that problem space, and go, hey, wait a minute, this group isn't right on this one. I got to go over here. I got to find a solution over here because it's not just the conservatives who balk at some of my suggestions. Like I've thought for decades now, adult prostitution should be legal in every single state. It's legal in Nevada. It's unenforced in Montana and Rhode Island. It should be absolutely legal. This way, they could do what they claim they're doing in law enforcement, getting at the victims out of the sex trades. Because, like in Europe and like in Germany, being a hooker is just a job. They have pensions and shit. I used to have a couple of informants at the main brothel in Mainz. Real cute old gal. I used to talk to her all the time because she kind of like knew everybody's name in the downtown space. And I was like, hey, we got a couple of GIs really roughed up down here the other night. She goes, oh, yeah. It's those two assholes from next door. You mean the bouncers? They go, oh, yeah. And he goes, okay, I'll get the bull's eye on that. But she was like, yeah, I'm going to retire to Spain. I got a retirement account saved up. I'm working 2 more years and then I'm retiring and I'm going to live out my life in a nice village in Spain. Okay. Now, I maybe not wanting, prostitution as the career for my daughter or my sister, but people have to make their own damn choices. I've had both conservatives and liberals freak out on me over that one. I mean, freak out. Um, Even though I was involved in the drug war in the army, I think we should end the drug war. End it. If they want to do something on the border for interdiction or at the airport or a shipyard, okay, I guess, but nothing inside the United States. The way you deal with drugs is education and healthcare and producing a family support structure, a strong family unit. Because when they attack America, they're going to destroy the American family. They've already been destroying the American family economically. They doubled down on it when the bank bailouts happened. Yeah, we already know this generation of Americans are struggling financially. So let you pay for the cost of their crimes. Okay, independent. That's where we need to go. Okay. Be independent, vote independent, run for local office as an independent, get to know your candidates, know a couple of good issues, good working knowledge of that issues, and then ask good questions of that candidate. What are you going to do to fix this? And at first, you won't get real answers. But if we all start doing it, go, no, 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 I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a problem. I'm telling you, I'm asking you as an individual, what are you going to do about this? I don't want to hear about your group thing. I don't want to hear about your half-assed non-solution. What are you going to do to actually fix this shit? Because major issues like the Affordable Care Act did not solve healthcare, not even close. It did raise profits for many for-profit hospitals and insurance companies, though. What are you going to do to actually fix healthcare in this country? What are you going to do to stop the student debt? It's $1.4 trillion right now. That's usury. Wrote an article about that too. That's usury. What are you going to do to actually fix that? Not hand waving bullshit anymore. Okay. And it's time to get tough. It's time to get tough on the candidates. It's time to get tough on ourselves. I look back at the stuff I used to think and I go, man, I screwed up. I shouldn't have encouraged these idiots. It's like PJ O'Rourke's old joke. He goes, "Nah, I try not to vote because that just encourages the bastards." He was joking. He votes, but um, yeah, we got to get out there. There's no doubt about it. We have to survive to the midterms, and that's going to be a chore. Um, Hopefully, Minneapolis and Minnesota was started something today. I'm hoping. They had a great turnout. I was really impressed with some of the pictures I saw, the size of the crowd. That was good. Restaurants closed, delis closed, coffee shops closed. Okay. Maybe we can start something bigger. Um, yes, a bigger general strike, nationwide general strike. We need to look to the new democracies of Eastern Europe who have pulled off general strikes successfully. We need to look to them as a model and stop being so lazy and arrogant, thinking that, oh, we've got it all so good. No, what we have is being torched by a nationalist regime. And if they get their way and they increase the military budget to 1.5 trillion from 900 billion and focus all that military effort plus the world's largest, most expensive law enforcement agency on earth right now is ICE. They turn all that against internally into America, it's going to get bad. Okay. And guess what? A lot of the Democrats aren't helping whatsoever. They're co-conspirators to the disaster. They're collaborators with the regime. Okay. So start thinking more independently. Okay. I'll probably be on again this weekend. Thanks for joining me. Good crowd tonight. I really appreciate it. Thanks for the comments, the likes. Please share and restack. That always helps. Um, if you're doing okay and you want to subscribe, that's really cool. My content will always be free. I will never put a paywall up. I've already made that decision. But eventually, I would like to transfer more to doing this more full time than I do computers. Since I've been doing computers for 30 years, I still like it. I still like solving the puzzles. But getting older, your job opportunities go away. So I'll continue consulting on the side and doing my stuff from here. But I would love to make transition. But hey, if you're struggling like a lot of Americans are, just come for the information. I'm totally down with that. And again, thanks for being here. I'll talk to you this weekend. Peace out, and until next time, please think about it.